In a city rich with history and art, the National Museum in Sweden stands as a testament to the country's cultural heritage. Despite, or maybe because of, its significance, the museum became the target of a daring heist in 2000, involving a car bomb distraction and a swift theft of valuable paintings worth millions. The heist, orchestrated with precision, led to a nationwide search and, well, you'll just have to keep listening to find out. Welcome to Capers and Cocktails, a true crime podcast that doesn't take itself too seriously and gives you something to enjoy while you listen. The following content may be disturbing to some. Discretion is advised. If you're enjoying one of our themed cocktails, ensure you're of legal drinking age and have fun, but drink responsibly. The National Museum in Stockholm, Sweden, like many other European national galleries, has a history tied to royalty transitioning ownership to the state, resulting in collections we can see as the public. The collection includes works once owned by Queen Lovisa Ulrika, settled by her son King Gustav III due to her financial troubles from her pursuit of art. The museum houses a collection of approximately 700,000 objects, including 500,000 drawings from the Middle Ages to 1900, porcelain items, paintings, sculptures, and modern art. The museum also has a significant collection of portrait miniatures. The building is owned and managed by the National Property Board of Sweden and has been a state building monument since 1935. On December 22, 2000, 2 blocks from the National Museum, a car bomb detonated in front of the Grand Hotel in Stockholm. Within just a few seconds, a second car bomb blew up right in front of the nearby Stand Hotel, just 2 blocks away. As you'd expect, police and emergency personnel rushed to the sites of the explosions. At 4:55 p.m., just a few minutes after the explosions rocked central Stockholm, and 5 minutes before closing, a man in a hoodie strolled casually into the National Museum and pulled out an MP5, a small submachine gun. 2 other men, also wearing hoodies, who had been in the museum posing as guests, suddenly pulled out their own handguns. They brandished their weapons toward the security guards, who made no moves to stop them, and then they were ordered to lay down face on the ground. And as quickly as the bombs had gone off, the men grabbed 3 smaller paintings off of the walls and ran out of the front door. The entire heist only took a matter of minutes. The 3 men pulled nails out of their pockets and threw them all over the road, and then ran across the street. What was waiting for them? A well-tethered speedboat. Now, dear listeners, you may remember a recent Capers and Cocktails episode that took place near Stockholm that also involved stealing priceless items from a museum and also involved a speedboat. And if you don't remember, I'll remind you. The Stockholm area of Sweden has a rich history of boat-related heists, and for good reason. You see, the city sits on the delta where Lake Mälaren, a really windy and island-filled lake, is. It's 440 square miles big. 14 islands at the least, but if you're watching on YouTube, you'll see that this lake is kind of finger-shaped. There are lots of canals and connections to rivers, as well as a lot of land surface area you could easily escape to. Let us not forget, if you had the supplies, you could just go ahead and escape into the Baltic Sea itself and, well, disappear. It makes it the ideal heist getaway for Swedish criminals. And in honor of the Baltic Sea itself, we're going to make a sea breeze. The sea breeze is believed to have originated in the early 1920s or 1930s in the United States, where it was first thought of. This cocktail was developed as a spin on the Cape Codder. That drink is known for its mix of vodka and cranberry juice. Part of the reason that the sea breeze is still a popular drink is that it's super versatile. You can make it with vodka, gin, or tequila, making it a go-to for creative mixologists in training. It can also be served as a punch, making it perfect for big parties. Though I can sometimes be a party all by myself, today we're just going to make a single serving. For the cocktail, we will add 1.5 parts vodka, 4 parts cranberry juice, and 1 part grapefruit juice to a shaker with ice. We shake until chilled and combined, and then strain into a glass with fresh ice and a lime wheel for garnish. For the mocktail, take 1.5 parts non-alcoholic vodka, 4 parts cranberry juice, and 1 part grapefruit juice, and add that to a shaker with ice. Shake, 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 strain, 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 and add your own lime wheel to be a party all by yourself. So despite odds potentially to the contrary, the three museum burglars made their escape without firing a single shot or hurting a single person, including in the car explosions, which, as it turns out, were set by the heisters as a distraction so that they could have easy access to the real target. A self-portrait by Rembrandt and two Renoir paintings, one called Conversation and the other Young Parisian. Their haul was worth between $30 and $40 million, although none of the paintings had actually been insured. The heisters had also, in advance, slashed the tires of many police vehicles who found themselves helpless to help at either crime scene. This was a sophisticated heist executed pretty flawlessly. But before you go admiring these guys, listen to Thomas Hall, an arts professor at Stockholm University, who said, quote, "The whole robbery is absurd. The paintings will eventually return to the museum. No collector wants to buy something that you can't show." End quote. We know all about that. Police tracked down the boat that the thieves used, but found no paintings and no thieves. They were all long gone. But that's not quite the end of the story. A few days after the heist, in early January 2001, the thieves made a second, or maybe third or fourth, very smart move, showing me at least that these folks were not amateurs. Through a lawyer acting on behalf of the robbers, they issued a ransom demand to the museum for $3 million, or $5.3 million today. They had photographic proof that they had the actual paintings. Now, knowing as you do the value of these paintings when, as we've discussed, they're actually priceless, you might think that $3 million isn't very much to ask for. But as you also know well, it's almost impossible to sell stolen art on the black market or otherwise. And so a ransom of $3 million might seem like a win-win, unless you think about all the other potential burglars who were probably paying close attention to how the National Museum would respond. And they responded by refusing to pay the ransom. You might think it would be because they wanted to send a strong message to once and future art thieves. But the truth is, at the time of the robbery, acting museum director Torsten Gunnarsson said that the thieves would, quote, "probably blackmail us, but we won't pay any money. We don't have any money," end quote. But the thieves weren't as clever as they'd imagined. Police quickly identified who they believed to be the masterminds of the scheme: Alexander Petrov and Stefan Nordstrom. Alex was a Russian national in his early 40s, and Stefan was 31 years old. They, along with their lawyer, negotiator, and some other accomplices, were arrested in January 2001. They all pled not guilty, but in July 2001, Alex, the supposed ringleader and the one who had the submachine gun, was convicted and sentenced to 6.5 years in prison. Stefan, another one of the gunmen, got 6 years in the slammer, both for aggravated robbery. The paintings? No one was saying a thing. In March of 2001, however, the police were doing a completely unrelated drug raid when they stumbled upon Conversation, the Renoir masterpiece, rolled up and hidden in a duffel bag. The police statement about the raid said, quote, "We weren't looking for the painting, so it was a bonus when we found it," end quote. In 2005, 4 men, 2 Iraqis, a Swedish national, and a Gambian, were arrested in Copenhagen trying to sell the Rembrandt. They were convinced they had a payday coming, but really they were selling the painting to undercover cops. Evidently, these guys were trying to sell the several $million painting for only $100,000 after being unable to sell it for 5 years. See what I told you? And the art professor too, I guess. A Swedish SWAT team set up this entire sting operation in a hotel room, and after the undercover agent convinced the 3 criminals in the room that the cash he was offering wasn't counterfeit, a 4th criminal showed up with the real painting, and the SWAT team swooped in. Once that painting was recovered, the FBI announced that they had recovered the Young Parisian in September 2005 in Los Angeles. Evidently, the FBI had been investigating a Bulgarian criminal syndicate for drug trafficking when they heard talk of the Young Parisian. Can you imagine listening over the wire and hearing them talking about art instead of drugs? Anyway, the FBI arrested one of the group's leaders, Boris Kostov, who after being interrogated gave them the Young Parisian, which evidently had been expertly smuggled into the U.S. through LAX airport. Boris also confessed that the remaining Rembrandt was in Denmark. The FBI had kept the recovery of their stolen painting secret until then to aid the recovery of the remaining Rembrandt. In total, 13 men were charged in connection to the heist, including those guys who had their hands on the paintings after the actual crime. Several of them, including Alex and Stefan, since it turns out this heist was the first known armed robbery of the kind in the country's history, got pretty harsh sentences. It was the first robbery like that, and it was the year 2000, if you can believe it. Actually, it's not the first time someone's been brandishing a gun around Stockholm, if you've heard of a certain syndrome, but apparently it was the first armed art burglary of its kind. All three paintings were in good condition when recovered, which is kind of rare and great news for National Museum and the art world as a whole. The Young Parisian, the painting found in Los Angeles, did have a large scratch in its varnish, but experts said it was superficial and could be fixed. Gorel Cavalli Bjorkman, head of research at National Museum, said, quote, "I jumped with joy. I had expected it would be recovered at some point. I was just hoping we would get it back before I retired," end quote. In 2012, the National Property Board of Sweden started much-needed repairs and renovations to the National Museum. During the renovation, the museum exhibited its collection in other locations. It was reinaugurated on October 13th, 2018 by King Carl XVI Gustaf, with expanded exhibition space and improved features such as more daylight, better views, and a quieter restaurant location. I hope they also added some security to keep paintings from being pulled off the wall. Thanks for hanging out with me. Have any of you ever been to Stockholm? It certainly seems like it would be a beautiful city to visit with so much access to water all around. I gotta say though, it seems like I've done more than my fair share of Stockholm-related crime over the past year or so. Just bad luck, I guess, as well as a lot of valuables worth stealing. And apparently the paintings in the National Museum are very important to Swedes. Tomas Rosander, the Consulate General of Sweden in Los Angeles, called the paintings a national treasure and said most Swedes visit the museum at some point in their life to view the works of art. Speaking of works of art, if you haven't left a rating and review of this podcast, would you please take 2 minutes to do so? I can't even take myself seriously. Anyway, I'm trying to grow the channel this year, and your review would go a long way to helping me do just that. Next week's cocktail, or if you want mocktail, is a simple one, so feel free to grab those ingredients and join me in mixing up your own. I'll see you next week, and remember, there are always alternatives to stealing priceless art and escaping by speedboat.